John FNAF just broke security breach wide open, and we need to talk about the repercussions. And yes, I'm sick again. But slices, put on your aprons, and let's bake ourselves a theory. First, let's gather our ingredients. Last week, FNAF posted a part 2 to his two-parter theory, and there's a lot of great stuff in there. I disagree with some things, and I want to look more into other things myself, but for the sake of this video, let's just assume everything he said in that was true. What did he say? Well, I'm not going to be discussing the merits of the theory itself in this video, I just want to talk about the repercussions of it. But for the sake of clarity, and to put it very, very simplistically and briefly, when William killed Charlotte Emily, Henry rebuilt her in a child form but discarded the project. William took the discarded pieces and made them into his own killer minibot, and Glitchtrap used that illusion disc-wielding childlike robot as another helper during the setup for security breach, that robot being Patient 46. When the blob makes its presence known, Glitchtrap and Vanessa can tell that many of the souls still reside in the blob, specifically Charlotte and Cassidy. Knowing that either of these souls could become a problem for Glitchtrap, he then orders Vanessa to use the mini-robot as a vessel for Charlotte's soul, and they threw the now possessed Charlotte robot into the Sticky Room pit to keep an eye on her. They also put Cassidy within the 3 Princess Quest arcade machines to trap them. There's a lot more to it and a lot of evidence that points to that he has in his video, so after you're done here, definitely check it out. But after you're done here, leaving a video too early hurts it in the algorithm. What I really want to get at is the ripples in the timeline that this theory could potentially create. As we've discussed previously, Help Wanted and the books seem to be making a new timeline with the ongoing FNAF games. Sort of a soft reboot. It seems pretty clear that Steel Wool and Scott want to create a new narrative as they move forward without being bogged down by the specifics of the older narrative. So if this theory is true, it could direct us as to what went on before the Pizzaplex in this new timeline. And before anyone gets mad that they're changing the narrative we've spent the past so many years discovering and trying to figure out, just think of it like this. We now have 2 separate but similar timelines. The old timeline made up of these games in probably this order or something similar that we've pretty much figured out. It has William and his plan, Michael trying to foil it, and Henry Emily's ultimate plan to end the whole thing. Now we have a new timeline with FNAF 6 onward probably actually existing and the previous games existing in this sort of dubious canon non-canonicity. All the work we've done up until now is cracking this timeline. And now that it's mostly solved, we have this timeline to look at instead. So, like I mentioned, in this new timeline, the first 5 games are in this sort of dubious canonicity, whereas FNAF 6 onwards seem to be more canon. We used Help Wanted to find that games 1 through 5 can be mostly discarded. But the 8-bit minigames seem to be more accurate as to what actually happened. We also know from the books that whoever made these first 5 games seems to not really know what exactly happened at Fazbear Entertainment, or have very little knowledge of the true events, thanks to a recent game theory video. So if we put together my theory about how Help Wanted dictates what happened in the earlier games and what didn't happen, MatBat's theory about how the indie developer didn't know what actually happened and was doing his best, and FNAF's new theory about what probably happened in this new timeline, if we mix all those together, what can that tell us about what actually happens in the new timeline? Well, let's mix our ingredients and see what comes out of it. I think the most logical place to start is the most recent game, and then we can start to walk backwards until we run out of evidence. FNAF already did a great job of explaining how the Charlie robot and Elizabeth interact with security breach, so that feels like already tread ground. However, I disagree with how the Charlie bot got there in the first place. So let's go back to where that and Elizabeth's soul previously resided before security breach, the FNAF 6 location, Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator, seemingly the beginning to the new timeline. God, it's hot in here. Do you like the new digs? Because you guys were the ones that made it happen with such amazing support. For anyone that doesn't know, in the description I have a Koji link, and one of the links on there is to upgrade the channel. It's basically fundraisers for new equipment. It was recently a green screen, but it just shot past it. So I updated it for a clearer camera, but because we now have a green screen, we've got this. I'm totally in Pizzeria Simulator. This isn't, don't worry about it. But thank you all so much for the amazing support. And again, do not think it's necessary. Just watching the video is more than enough support. But shout out to these crazy people who are all anonymous, so I could not find names. Autumn Wolf, while I was editing, I found your username. You're crazy. Thank you. You are wild. Thank you. But thank you so much for everything. Anyways, in my previous theory, I stated that Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator has to be a real event and not an in-universe game. There's just so much lore in it that we needed it as an anchor. But at the time, I was fusing the old timeline with the new timeline, and I have to stop doing that. Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator is canon in the old timeline, but in the new timeline, I don't think it is. I know this is a radical shift, but hear me out. First off, you guys are right, okay? I looked at this plush again. That's Scrap Baby. Look at the colors of the hair, look at the claw in the hand. I was wrong, you guys are right. Scrap Baby is referenced in Help Wanted. Not only that though, look at the blob in Security Breach. By all accounts, the blob should be made up of Lefty, Scrap Trap, Scrap Baby, and Molten Freddy, but it's not. Look closely. It's made up of Funtime Freddy, Circus Baby, the Marionette, and Scrap Trap is nowhere to be found. Neither is Lefty. We can assume that Scrap Trap would have been pulled out by Vanessa to make Burn Trap. But where's Lefty? Where's Scrap Baby? Where's Molten Freddy? You could argue that just like the older animatronics, these new pieces were pulled out of Rockstar Row, but I don't think that's the case. The head of this blob is Funtime Freddy. It seems to be mostly acting as Funtime Freddy with this blob of entities attached to it. How would the main operandi be taken from Rockstar Row? It had to have been there from the beginning. It had to have been essentially a bigger Molten Freddy, or a bigger proto-blob piloted by Funtime Freddy. If Fazbear Entertainment wants to put all of this dark history behind them by using a series of indie games, why would they end on FNAF 4, a video game that just shows us a kid with nightmares dying? Or why would they end on FNAF Sister Location, a game that says, oh, there's a mess of Fazbear animatronics somewhere out there trying to get you and it will pilot your skin? These are bad looks. Why wouldn't they end with Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator? A game that says, hey, don't worry, all the evil animatronics are gone. We burned them. Now it's just safe Freddy Fazbear. In this new timeline, the game's timeline, Pizzeria Simulator is likely the last game the indie dev made. He was told about something that happened at this location, so he just embellished the horror, stressed the resolution. I mean, it's not like Fazbear would have actually known what Henry was trying to do. It's incredibly likely that what actually took place at this location that we see in Security Breach was wildly different. It wasn't Molten Freddy, Scrap Trap, Scrap Baby, and Lefty. It was an amalgamation of Funtime Freddy. It was Springtrap. It was Circus Baby. It was just the Marionette. It was an attempt to burn down these robots and free their spirits. Well, how would Charliebot have gotten there? Well, I agree with FNAF's interpretation that Charliebot was created by Henry Emily after the death of Charlotte by the hands of William, but I don't think that Henry discarded her. I think he kept her with him to assist him in grieving and later to assist him in finally destroying whatever is left of William Afton. This creates narratively a really satisfying storyline of William and his killer robotic circus baby daughter Elizabeth trying to wreak havoc, and Henry and his helpful robotic daughter Charliebot trying to stop them. If Charliebot was helping Henry in this new timeline, it would make sense for her to be at the FNAF 6 location, and for her to just be present at the burning. If everything else is gone, she would want to be gone too. Unfortunately, it didn't work. Everyone just pooled into Funtime Freddy's amalgamate, forming the blob as we know it. But now, Elizabeth, Charlie, and Cassidy are all stuck in the same massive unit. When Glitchtrap ordered his freshly mind-wiped slave Vanessa into that pit to go retrieve him, just like Sister Location, Elizabeth was rejected from the hive mind. After all, besides Springtrap, she would be the only soul in there who's actually wants William to succeed. But there's nothing else for her to go into. So when a human with a blank spot of her mind controlled by Glitchtrap enters, that's the perfect home for Elizabeth to go into. Vanessa became possessed. Vanny, as we see her in Security Breach, could be the combination of Elizabeth's soul melded into the blank spot that Glitchtrap carved out of Vanessa's mind. But wait, if Molten Freddy and Scrap Baby never existed in this new timeline, did Ennard? I don't think so. So let's go back to Sister Location. At least it's air conditioned in here. So, Ennard, one of my favorite guys. I don't think he's real in the new timeline. I mean, think about it. He's directly referenced in Help Wanted, and he's a goddamn cutout in Security Breach. If the events in Sister Location took place as we know them, Ennard should not be public knowledge, let alone a photo opportunity. But if Ennard was never real, what actually took place at Sister Location? Frankly, we don't have enough evidence right now to point to an actual plot line. But let's speculate on one of the possibilities. Seeing how separate Circus Baby is from the other Funtimes in the new timeline version of FNAF 6, we could speculate that Circus Baby never melded into Ennard, or what I'll just call the Proto-Blob. that being Funtime Freddy, Ballora, and Funtime Foxy. If Michael truly went down to that bunker to search for his sister and found Circus Baby clearly haunted by Elizabeth, is it not possible that he feels bad enough to just let her leave? After all, most of her exoskeleton is present in the blob, and if she left via Ennard, none of it should have been retrievable. A possible plot of this game in the new timeline is when Michael sees how dangerous all of the other Funtimes are, he just scoops them in the scooping room, letting Elizabeth leave. But as he tries to leave behind her, the mass of Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, and Ballora, the proto-blob, get Michael, scoop him, and leave via him. So the idea of Ennard and Michael being scooped is still there, it's just slightly different, like this whole timeline is from the older timeline. Again, this is really speculative, and I have no evidence to base this on, but it would lead to the outcomes that we see in a likely version of the new timeline's FNAF 6, where Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, and Ballora all escape as a mass of a proto-blob, Michael still dies, and Circus Baby can make it to FNAF 6. I still have a lot of questions about what happened in this bunker and how we got there, but frankly, in this new timeline, we don't have any evidence for any of that. We barely have evidence to point us towards FNAF 6 outside of this room and the blob. So any more speculating on previous things is just going to get more and more futile. All we can speculate to is if these games didn't happen, events similar to them did, but they were either misinterpreted by the indie dev or just made up by him entirely. We can assume so far that the 8-bit minigames are still true, that there were 5 victims from William Afton, possibly 10, Charlie was killed by William Afton, some of the animatronics got haunted, and the bite probably still happened, if we are to believe the 8-bit minigames. At least some form of them happened. Something happened. But right now, we don't have enough evidence to point to what. Essentially, they can't be trusted, but don't throw them out yet. So with the interpretation of the new timeline lended to us by FNAF, the guidance of what the indie dev knows lended to us by game theory, and my theory about what Help Wanted tells us about the new timeline, what can we create? What is this new timeline made of? What do we know so far? Well, this place is giving me the heebie-jeebies, so first, let's get back home. That is the best way to travel. Alright, I'm not going to do a full timeline because that'll have to be its own separate video. It'll be massive if I try to do that now. Frankly, we also don't have enough evidence before, like, 2 games from now. For now, let's just try to isolate Sister Location, Pizzeria Simulator, and Security Breach, and see how those games interact and the games that did or didn't happen in between them. So let's pop our mixture into the oven and see what kind of horrors begin to rise. William wants to have access to his Funtime animatronics, so he tells Michael to go into his old bunker to find them. Michael agrees only to try and help what possibly remains of his sister, and what he finds terrifies him. Circus Baby, the very animatronic that caused the death of his sister, has come to be possessed by her. He frees her, but in doing so gets captured and killed by the endoskeleton amalgamate of Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, and Ballora, sort of a proto-blob. Then, sometime after, Henry comes up with the idea of Pizzeria Simulator. He and his robotic recreation of his daughter Charlie put the plan into motion, and they're able to trap Circus Baby being haunted by Elizabeth, the puppet being haunted by the actual soul of Charlotte, and Springtrap being haunted by William Afton, and the Proto-Blob being haunted by William's victims. Henry, Michael, and Charles E. all then attempt to burn themselves and everything else down to the ground, and let every soul involved in this plot find peace. But these souls are stronger than that. Just like in the FNAF 3 minigames, when the metal shells are destroyed, the souls are left wandering in that space, trapped. This could possibly show Ultimate Custom Night, as since William is outnumbered, the souls in that room could just be tormenting him in that purgatory. So, suddenly, the first mystery of this new timeline presents itself. Somehow, the remains of Springtrap need to be scanned, and CharlieBot needs to be freed by the discovery of the Pizzeria Simulator room in order for the events of Security Breach to take place. But the events of Security Breach are what discovers the Pizzeria Simulator room, so there becomes an inconsistency there. Maybe the room is discovered and then the Pizzaplex is built on top, but if that's the case, why does Elizabeth's and Michael's soul stay in there until later? It's hard to tell. So maybe the remains that are scanned to create Glitchtrap and CharlieBot are held elsewhere and found elsewhere by the company. It's unclear. I know FNAF concluded that CharlieBot was held somewhere else as well, so I'll leave that as is and we'll just gloss over that detail for now. Once Glitchtrap is formed and wiped part of Vanessa's mind to make room for a brainwashed slave, he uses the CharlieBot to perform tasks in the real world, inhabiting it and giving orders to Vanessa with it. That way, he's not stuck in the VR game anymore. He orders her to start digging through the floor of the Pizzaplex to find the room where they're all located. She does this with the help of Glamrock Freddy and CharlieBot at the Pizzaplex. During this time is when the CharlieBot becomes Patient 46, being inhabited by the Glitchtrap virus. Once they get into the Pizzeria Simulator room, everything sets into motion at once. Michael's soul flies into the Glamrock Freddy animatronic, Elizabeth's soul flies into the vacancy in Vanessa's mind. Once Elizabeth's influence infiltrates that mind, Glitchtrap and her are made aware that this isn't just a pile of souls around William, but two of his worst enemies. Charlie and Cassidy are here as well. Always a fan of the dramatic and cruel irony, Glitchtrap and Vanny Elizabeth attempt to trap these souls in poetic ways. Since Cassidy possibly influenced the FNAF World game to assist in the crying child's passing, they put her remnant into a series of Princess Quest arcade cabinets and hide them in the facility. And since Charlie was so focused on bringing the souls back into robotic bodies, Glitchtrap leaves the Charlie bot vessel, and they put Charlie's soul into it. They then throw her into the guarded trash silo. Then Vanny Elizabeth went to work on recreating William in Burntrap. Meanwhile, Glitchtrap attempted to slowly corrupt the other animatronics. Their new plan? Find specimen perfect to recreate what happened with Vanessa. Find humans that can be brainwashed and then turned into Afton's new family. But when Freddy finds that the perfect crying child specimen in Gregory, his Afton programming collides with Michael's recognition of someone that looks just like his kid brother, and Freddy short circuits, and thus the beginning of Security Breach. Whew, this is a big one. And while I'm pretty confident in the chunk of this, there's some parts of it that I disagree with. I mean, first off, I still think Patient 46 is Vanny. Also, there's that mystery in the middle of how they got discovered but were in the hole. I know FNAF posits that Charlie Bot was never in the hole to begin with, and that's how she gets discovered. It's still really messy and confusing, but I think this is a good foundation to start theory crafting about this new timeline. Really, this is the most we can theorize about until something new gets discovered, someone thinks of something else, or the DLC gets released. Either way, I'm excited to see what this new timeline lets us in on. Now, typically this is where I direct you to another one of my videos because channel watch time really helps you in the algorithm, but I cannot in good faith not lead you to the two amazing videos that brought me here. So go check out FNAF's two-parter on Security Breach theories and the game theory video that talks about the books doing a new soft reboot. Again, they're both wonderful videos and you should really go check them out. Anyways, shout out to the best patrons, the Toasted Slices, Emberisk, Zenith, Tommy Woodyard, Raven Eris, Charlie Bean, Lovey Puppy, Stormachow, Anvil Pro 100, Just BKZ, and Chickpea. And until next time, as always, stay toasty, Slices.